The sound of children laughing was shattered by a scream that sliced through the afternoon air. It wasn't the playful kind. It was raw, panicked, the kind of scream that silences everything around it. 10-year-old Lily stood frozen on the edge of her family's front lawn, her pink leg braces glinting in the sun. She had only taken a few steps onto the grass when the figure of a woman stormed toward her, arms flailing, voice rising like a siren. I said, "No medical gear on the lawn," the woman shrieked, her face twisted in a fury that didn't match the moment. It was Karen, the HOA president, known in the neighborhood for her pristine flower beds and her hatred for anything she couldn't control. Before anyone could react, Karen lunged forward. With a force that shocked even the birds into flight, she gripped Lily's leg and ripped the brace clean off. The Velcro screamed as it tore, but not louder than Lily did. She collapsed to the grass, her tiny body shaking, her face turning pale as the shock and pain hit her all at once. Someone gasped, a neighbor holding a lemonade glass that slipped from her fingers and shattered on the pavement. Another bystander fumbled for their phone, filming the chaos, their hand trembling. Karen stood over Lily, breath heaving, eyes wild. "You people don't follow rules," she hissed. "This isn't a hospital. It's a community." Lily's mother sprinted across the lawn, dropping to her knees and wrapping her daughter in her arms. "What did you do?" she screamed at Karen. "She needs those to walk." A small crowd gathered, but no one stepped forward. Some stared, some whispered. One man muttered, "Call the cops." Karen took a step back, brushing imaginary dirt off her pristine blouse, as if nothing had happened. Lily sobbed into her mother's shoulder, her voice barely a whisper. "Why did she hurt me?" And then came the sound of sirens in the distance. That scream was only the beginning. 3 months earlier, the Robinsons were filled with hope. After years of cramped apartments, long hospital commutes, and noisy neighbors, they had finally closed on their first home in a quiet cul-de-sac in Evergreen Hills, a picture-perfect suburban neighborhood with trimmed hedges, backyard barbecues, and promises of peace. It wasn't just a fresh start. For Madison and Daniel Robinson, it was a gift for their daughter, Lily, a bright, soft-spoken girl born with cerebral palsy. Lily never asked for much. She didn't complain about the endless hospital visits or the fact that she had to use braces to walk. All she ever wanted was to feel normal, to chase butterflies, blow dandelions, and play on the grass like the other kids. And Evergreen Hills, with its wide sidewalks and spacious lawns, felt like the dream they had prayed for. "She's going to love it here," Madison had said, watching Lily spin gently on the porch with her braces clicking softly beneath her leggings. "It finally feels like we can breathe again." The first week felt like magic. Neighbors brought casseroles and polite smiles. A welcome sign appeared on their door. The mailman waved. One afternoon, as Lily sat on the porch drawing tulips in chalk, a woman strolled by, wearing a cardigan far too stiff for summer and clutching a clipboard. Such bold artwork, the woman said with a tight-lipped smile. "I'm Karen, head of the HOA." Daniel stood and extended a hand, but Karen barely shook it. Her eyes fixated on Lily's leg braces, pink, with little stickers of stars and kittens. "Your daughter's medical equipment," Karen said, tilting her head. "I assume you'll be keeping it inside when she's not using it?" Madison blinked. "They're not decorations. They're her legs." Karen chuckled, as if she hadn't heard the reply. "We just like to keep things tidy here. Uniform. Welcoming. You understand." It was the first flicker, a quiet warning beneath layers of politeness. Over the next few weeks, that flicker turned into a pattern. An anonymous note left on the porch, too much clutter visible from the street. Another, "Kids' toys should be stored by sunset." And then the real sting, a letter from the HOA stating that medically associated devices should not be left in plain view. Lily started to notice. She asked why the neighbors looked away when she waved, why one of the kids at the park called her robot legs, why Karen always stared when she walked across the driveway. Still, they stayed hopeful. "People just need time," Daniel told his wife. "They'll come around." But some people don't come around. Some people circle instead, like vultures waiting for the chance to strike. It started with a frown, then a stare, then silence. And before long, it felt like the entire neighborhood had signed a silent contract. Lily wasn't welcome. A week after the letter about medically associated devices, Karen sent a formal HOA notice. Visible mobility aids left on the lawn during non-active use may be considered a violation of Evergreen Hills Uniformity Clause 3.2b. Daniel crumpled the letter in his fist. This isn't about a clause. This is about her. Madison's voice cracked as she read it again. She's 8. She uses her braces every day. What do they expect us to do? Hide her inside like she's a broken chair? They tried to ignore it, hoping it would blow over. But it didn't. In fact, the pressure grew louder, without anyone saying a word. At the park, other parents slowly began pulling their children away when Lily climbed the slide. At a community event, the face-painting booth mysteriously shut down just as Lily approached. And then came the birthday party across the street, a bouncing castle, a dozen kids, and one glaring absence. Lily had been handed an invitation. But when she arrived in her Sunday dress, the mother stammered at the door, "Oh, we had to downsize. You understand, right?" Lily stood still for a second. "Because of my legs?" she asked softly. "No, not at all," the woman lied. "It's just the HOA prefers we keep things simple." She shut the door. And just like that, another door in Lily's world closed. That night, Madison found her daughter in bed, trying to pull off the kitten stickers from her braces. "Maybe if they look boring, people won't hate them," she whispered. It broke something in Madison. The next day, she stormed into the HOA office. A clean white room with portraits of past presidents and a plastic flag in the corner. Karen sat at the desk, flipping through a rule book like it was the Constitution. "You're targeting my daughter," Madison said, her voice sharp with grief and rage. "You hide behind bylaws, but you're really saying she doesn't belong here. You want her invisible." Karen didn't flinch. "This isn't personal. Rules maintain harmony. Your rules are turning this place into a prison," Madison spat. Karen gave a small smile. "Evergreen Hills is a community of standards. If you find those standards burdensome, there are other neighborhoods." That night, Daniel filed an appeal to the HOA board. It was denied within 48 hours. No explanation. The mailbox became a source of dread. More warnings. More subtle threats. Noncompliance will result in fines. Third notice, potential legal escalation. Even the neighbors who once waved now kept their heads down. Someone sprayed paint on their fence. HOA equals harmony or anarchy. Choose. It was all coded, all calculated. One morning, Lily sat by the window, watching a group of children ride their bikes. She turned to her mom and said, "I wish I could take my legs off and just be normal for a day." Madison didn't reply. She just held her tight. And Karen? She walked by their house every morning, clipboard in hand, eyes on Lily's legs, as if waiting for her next excuse. It was a Saturday morning when the final warning came, not through the mailbox, but in person. Lily had been outside on the lawn, balancing carefully on the stepping stones her father had arranged in a playful path. Her braces clicked with each step, but her laugh, that bright, innocent laugh, made it all feel like it was finally okay again. The sun was warm. Birds chirped. Even the mailman gave a nod of approval. Then Karen appeared. She didn't knock. She didn't smile. She walked right up the driveway, her heels stabbing into the concrete like a metronome counting down to something awful. "Mrs. Robinson," Karen began, her voice laced with faux concern, "we need to talk." Madison stepped outside, already stiff with suspicion. "If this is about the lawn again," Karen cut her off. "It's about the ongoing disruption your daughter is causing." Madison blinked. "Disruption?" Karen sighed, as if the weight of the neighborhood rested solely on her shoulders. "The braces, the noise they make, the way she moves, it's drawing unnecessary attention. Some residents have expressed discomfort, especially during community hours. She's 8 years old." Madison snapped. "She's not a spectacle. She lives here." Karen leaned in slightly, her tone softening into something colder. "Then maybe she should start behaving like she lives here, which means knowing her place inside." A beat of silence. Madison stared at her, stunned. Are you telling me to keep my disabled daughter locked inside our house? Karen didn't blink. I'm telling you to respect the community's peace. Daniel stepped out onto the porch just in time to hear that. His jaw clenched. If you ever talk about our daughter like that again, there will be legal consequences. Karen smiled. I'm just here to protect the standards. That's what I was elected to do. She turned to leave, but not before whispering over her shoulder. You don't want to test how far the HOA is willing to go. Not for one child. That night, Madison couldn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, rereading every HOA guideline, every letter, trying to make sense of it. But it didn't make sense, because none of it was about the lawn or the noise. It was about power, control, fear of difference. Meanwhile, Lily had stopped going outside. Every time she looked toward the yard, her hands would tense on her walker. Karen's going to yell, she'd say, eyes wide. She'll take my legs again. Madison cried that night, in the dark, alone, quietly, until Daniel spoke up, we fight this. We take it public. Within days, Madison posted a simple sentence on a local Facebook group. Can a community silence a child with a disability? She attached a photo of Lily, her braces decorated with unicorn stickers, her eyes gleaming with joy, standing at the edge of the grass she once ran on. It went viral overnight. Comments flooded in, some supportive, some cruel, others shocked. News outlets reached out. A disability rights group offered legal advice. An anonymous neighbor slid a handwritten note under their door. She deserves better. We've been silent too long. And then came the HOA emergency meeting. Karen stood at the head of a room, wrapped in her usual pristine blouse and righteous authority. This family is using emotion to manipulate the community, she declared. We must remember our values, order, consistency, harmony. But harmony had begun to crack. Two families stood up and walked out. A man in the back whispered to his wife, she's gone too far. That night, Lily drew a picture of her lawn, and wrote in bubble letters, one day I'll play again. The Robinsons pinned it on the fridge. A quiet promise. A final stand. Because no matter how many rules Karen clung to, they weren't going to hide anymore. The day of the incident was supposed to be special. It was Lily's birthday. Madison had planned a quiet outdoor celebration. Just close friends, a few balloons, and Lily's favorite butterfly-shaped cupcakes. The lawn had been freshly mowed, a pastel picnic blanket was spread near the flower bed, and streamers danced lazily in the breeze. For once, the Robinsons felt almost normal, almost safe. Lily was beaming in her custom birthday dress, soft purple with tiny embroidered stars. Her braces had been cleaned and wrapped in sparkly ribbon, a surprise for Madison. Today, she whispered, you shine. And for a while, everything was perfect. Neighbors they hadn't seen in weeks began showing up, quietly, bringing small gifts and whispered apologies. One mother knelt to Lily's level and said, my daughter made this for you. I'm sorry we haven't visited sooner. Others nodded politely at Madison, a silent acknowledgement that maybe things had gone too far. For the first time in months, Lily walked confidently across the lawn, each step deliberate and joyful, her giggle echoing like wind chimes. Daniel was setting up a foldable table with juice boxes. Madison took out her phone, capturing the smile on Lily's face as she twirled in her braces, arms spread wide like wings. Then the gate creaked open. Karen, wearing all white, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown, clipboard tucked tight under her arm, and that familiar pinched expression. She didn't speak at first. She stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, watching. Daniel noticed her and muttered, not today, please. But Karen began walking forward, slow, deliberate steps across the yard like a queen inspecting her kingdom. Madison stepped in front of her. She's playing. It's her birthday. Please just leave. Karen's lips curled. This is a violation. Multiple violations. Decorations, noise, and most of all that. She pointed directly at Lily's braces. She's a child. Daniel snapped. And you're trespassing. Karen didn't flinch. I warned you. This is not a medical facility. This is a neighborhood with rules. She took a step toward Lily. Lily paused in mid-twirl. Her eyes met Karen's. Karen's voice raised to a near screech. I told you before. And no medical gear on the lawn. Then, in a horrifying instant, Karen lunged. She grabbed Lily's leg, the right brace, and yanked. The Velcro screamed. Lily screamed louder. Her small body twisted, unbalanced, and she crashed onto the grass with a thud that silenced the party. One shoe flew off. Her cupcake splattered beside her. Madison let out a guttural cry and threw herself between them, shoving Karen back. Get away from her. Daniel ran to his daughter, scooping her up, her face drenched in tears. She's bleeding, he muttered, voice shaking. A neighbor dropped their phone in shock. Another began filming. Karen stood in place, panting, the brace dangling from her hand like a trophy. This is what happens, she snapped, when people don't listen. Lily's cries turned into wheezing sobs. A voice yelled, "Call 911." Another voice echoed, "That woman just attacked a child." Karen blinked, as if just realizing the world was watching. Her expression twisted into panic as multiple phones were now pointed in her direction. She dropped the brace. She was resisting. I was trying to maintain. Madison stood, trembling with fury, and shouted, "You assaulted my child." Karen backed away, stumbling over a flower pot as she turned and ran down the driveway, nearly colliding with a stroller as she pushed through the front gate. Minutes later, the police arrived. An officer crouched beside Lily, inspecting the bruising around her knee. "Did she do this to you, sweetheart?" he asked gently. Lily nodded, sobbing into Daniel's shirt. "She pulled my legs off." Paramedics arrived, and Madison rode with her daughter in the ambulance, still clutching the ribbon-wrapped brace as if it were a piece of her broken heart. Daniel stayed behind. He gave the officer the phone footage from 3 neighbors. Karen was gone, but her actions were captured from every angle. That night, the Robinsons' quiet street was anything but quiet. News vans parked at both ends. Reporters called it the HOA attack. Social media exploded. Hashtag Justice for Lily began trending. The neighborhood that once kept its head down was now a war zone of opinions. Some HOA members resigned the next morning. And Karen? She wasn't seen for days. But one thing was certain, she had crossed the line. And the world was watching now. The emergency room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Lily lay on a hospital bed, hooked to and for, her braces removed for x-rays. Madison sat beside her, holding her tiny hand as her daughter drifted in and out of sleep, mumbling through pain medication. She just wanted to play, Madison whispered, brushing the girl's hair from her forehead. That's all. The bruises on Lily's knee were deep, and one ankle had minor ligament damage. The doctors said the brace had prevented a worse injury. Ironic, considering it was also what made her a target. Daniel stood outside, phone to his ear, voice tight. "Yes, we have the footage. Multiple angles. We want to press charges, assault on a minor. Attempted child endangerment. We'll provide everything." News of the incident spread like wildfire. By the next morning, every major network had picked it up. HOA president attacks disabled girl for playing on lawn, caught on camera. Karen rips medical braces off child in HOA dispute. Disability rights. Groups demand justice after viral assault. Madison and Daniel hadn't planned on becoming public figures, but overnight their lives became a whirlwind. They gave interviews on local TV stations, their faces tired but resolute. "I never imagined my daughter's joy could offend someone so deeply," Madison told a reporter from Channel 9. "We moved here for peace. Instead, we found a war." Meanwhile, Karen vanished. The HOA board released a cold, calculated statement. The HOA does not condone violence or harassment. However, individual behavior does not reflect the values of the entire association. There was no apology, no accountability, just deflection. But the Robinsons weren't backing down. A lawsuit was filed. A civil attorney working pro bono stood beside them on the courthouse steps and announced, "We are pursuing legal action not just against Karen, but against the HOA itself for fostering a culture of discrimination and allowing it to escalate unchecked." In the background, Lily clutched her teddy bear and waved silently at the cameras. Public pressure mounted. Disability rights advocates rallied online and in front of Evergreen Hills HOA office, holding signs like, "Let her walk free. Braces aren't a violation. They're her freedom. Silence is compliance still." There were doubters. Anonymous emails flooded the Robinsons' inbox. Some blamed them for milking the system. Others called it just a misunderstanding. Some claimed Karen was the victim of cancel culture. But the footage didn't lie. In one clip, you could see the horror on Lily's face, the pain in her scream, the unfiltered rage in Karen's eyes. No spin could erase that. A week after the incident, a special HOA meeting was called. Over 50 residents showed up, some in support, others in fear of what their community had become. Karen finally appeared. Her appearance was strikingly different. No sunglasses, no clipboard, just a woman now surrounded by lawyers and whispers. She claimed she had acted out of concern and that Lily's mobility equipment posed a hazard to others. Madison stood and spoke directly to her. "You grabbed a child. You tore her to the ground. And now you're trying to turn that into policy?" Her voice cracked. "She's not a hazard. She's my daughter." The room fell silent. Then someone clapped. Then another. Within seconds, the crowd was on its feet. The HOA board voted to remove Karen as president by a 6-1 decision. She was banned from holding office in the community permanently. But the Robinsons knew that removal wasn't justice. The court case moved forward. Depositions, medical reports, testimonies. And through it all, Lily healed slowly, physically and emotionally. Therapy helped. So did art. She drew pictures of clouds with little legs and labeled them strong walkers. The media circus faded after a month, but the story stuck in people's minds. And in the end, the judge ruled in Lily's favor. Karen was found liable for assault and ordered to pay damages, as well as cover Lily's medical and emotional therapy costs. The HOA was ordered to revise its bylaws under legal supervision and implement inclusivity training. But more than money or reform, it was the public acknowledgement that mattered most. At the final court hearing, Lily stood next to the judge's bench. The judge leaned down and said, "You're very brave. I hope you never stop walking." Lily smiled. "Even if they try to stop me?" The judge winked, especially then. The grass never felt the same after that day. For weeks, Lily wouldn't go near it. She'd sit by the window, tracing imaginary paths across the lawn with her finger, her braces leaning untouched by the door. Every time the breeze rustled the trees, she'd flinch, a reflex to a trauma that had cut deeper than bruises ever could. Madison didn't push her. Neither did Daniel. Instead, they waited, sat beside her in silence, read her stories, listened when she whispered things like, "What if I fall again? What if she comes back? What if people still stare?" "You only have to take one step," Madison would say gently. "We'll take the rest with you." Therapy helped, not just the physical kind. Though Lily worked hard in the rehab room, gritting her teeth every time the tightness flared up in her ankle. But also the emotional healing, learning to trust her own legs again. Her right to be seen. Her right to take space. One day, her therapist gave her an assignment. Draw what it feels like when you're happy. Lily drew herself on the lawn, braces on, arms wide, surrounded by kids holding balloons. When she brought the picture home, Madison pinned it to the fridge next to the one she had drawn before the attack. The difference was stark. This new version had sunshine, and in the bottom corner, Lily had written, "I still want to play." That was the moment everything began to change again. A week later, Daniel rolled out a fresh picnic blanket onto the same patch of grass, not for a party, just for breakfast. He sat alone at first, eating toast. Then Madison joined him. They didn't say a word, just smiled softly toward the house. And after a long moment, the door creaked open. Lily stood there, holding her walker, wearing her sparkly braces again. She looked at them, unsure, then at the lawn. Her parents didn't call to her. They just waited, and then she walked, step by step, shaky but determined, until she stood right between them on the blanket. The sun caught the shimmer of her braces like a spotlight. Madison wept, not from pain this time, but pride. Lily grinned and whispered, "Can we burn my chalk next time?" From that day forward, the Robinsons reclaimed their yard. Inch by inch, laugh by laugh. Neighbors who once turned away now waved. Some came by with gifts. One father brought his son over and asked, "Would you like to play with my kid? He has braces too." Lily nodded. She didn't need permission anymore. The HOA, under new leadership, began implementing major reforms. They removed discriminatory clauses, hired accessibility consultants, and established a new rule: every child deserves a place to play. A small sign was installed at the community park. This space is for all legs, running, rolling, braced, or crawling. Welcome home. At a town event months later, Lily was asked to speak. She was nervous. Her hands trembled. But she stepped onto the small wooden stage and said into the microphone, "I didn't want to be a story. I just wanted to play." But I'm glad people listened, because now no one else has to be scared to walk on grass. The crowd clapped. Some cried. Karen never returned to Evergreen Hills. Her house went up for sale, the porch flowers wilted, and the clipboard that once ruled the street collected dust in a thrift store miles away. But Lily's drawings? They never stopped. She started taping them to the mailbox every Sunday. Pictures of her walking, dancing, flying with rocket-powered braces. Notes like, "If you see someone different, smile. Don't follow rules that hurt people. Play is for everyone." And the lawn? It was no longer just a patch of grass. It was a battleground, a healing place, a memory, a victory. And most of all, it was hers. I used to believe that silence was safety, that if we just kept our heads down, followed the rules, smiled politely, and didn't make waves, we'd be left alone. That maybe, just maybe, the world would make space for someone like Lily. But I was wrong, because silence is not peace. It's permission. And when we stayed quiet, we gave people like Karen the power to decide who mattered and who didn't. My daughter is not a violation. She's not a disruption. She's not different. She's brave. She's brilliant. She's a child who wears braces on her legs and a galaxy in her heart. And all she ever wanted was to feel the grass under her feet without being punished for it. That moment, the one where she was thrown to the ground, crying, frightened, betrayed, it changed something in all of us. It showed us how far cruelty can go when it's dressed in rules and wrapped in neighborhood politics. But it also showed us how far love will go to protect what's right. We fought back, and we won, not just in court, but in hearts, in minds, in communities who now ask, are we making room for everyone instead of just asking people to disappear? And Lily? She's still walking, still drawing, still playing, still showing the world that kindness walks louder than hate ever could. So, if you've watched this and felt even a fraction of what we lived through, don't let that feeling go quiet. Because somewhere another child is being told they don't belong. Somewhere another Karen is watching from behind a curtain, measuring how much of someone's humanity they can erase before anyone speaks up. So speak. Stand up. Don't wait for tragedy to shake you awake. Be the noise before the scream. If this story moved you, don't scroll away. Backhand index pointing right, like this video. Backhand index pointing right, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Backhand index pointing right, subscribe to our channel, HOA Denied Access, for more real, raw stories that fight back against injustice, and remind us that every voice, no matter how small, deserves to be heard. Reminder ribbon, because we won't be silent again. And neither should you.